Oh, so glad you guys are here. And I am at my friend's house. I am making my way back to Colorado. Yesterday I drove from the Tampa Bay area to Destin, where I am staying. Hello, Miss Stacy. Anyways, and I get to see Stacy and
Hi.
I get to see you guys since I'm in your neck of the woods. It will be a lot of fun. But today we are going to continue on the lesson that we started looking at last week. Last week in our episode, this is 233 of Ascension with A Course in Miracles, we are looking at really the only way to save ourselves from the mess that we have gotten ourselves in. And I love this particular lesson because it's blunt. It's so blunt. It says salvation comes from my one self, capital S self. And what's so important to understand about A Course in Miracles is that it is a very comprehensive explanation. It's a workbook. It's a manual for a teacher, somebody who feels that they are gaining mastery of the course, then they can become a teacher of it. And when you become a teacher of it, you actually to teach is to learn. So if you decide to begin to share with others what you have learned from A Course in Miracles, it's going to deepen the learning in you. And as somebody who has been teaching the course for over a decade, I can tell you that when we make the commitment to teach, we are really grounding ourselves in a foundation that the course provides to us. Ascension with A Course in Miracles is something I've been doing now for, I guess, 4 years. This is episode 233, and today is March 4th. March 4th, what a sweet day. I'll tell you about March 4th in a second. But the I've been teaching A Course in Miracles now. Hey, sweetie, thanks for joining us. Teaching A Course in Miracles for well over a decade. I guess it's 14 years, 15 years now. I can't remember. I think it started, I might have started, no, actually, I became a student of the course in 2011, end of 2011. So 2012 is when I really started that full on one lesson a day, and I started teaching, I guess, 2014. And that is when, well, I met you, Dondra, 2014 with A Course in Miracles, back at Unity in Atlanta. And so it's been 12 years of teaching the course. And I'll tell you, every time I share it with somebody, that's what teaching is. You're just simply sharing what you know. And nobody, no teacher can take anyone above their level of awareness. It's not possible. You cannot teach what you don't really know. Now, you can instruct people on the information that you haven't mastered, but once you master it, you actually become a teacher, because the teaching is not about your words, it's about your actions. And one who is instructing can instruct on words. They can point to the lesson, they can read the lesson together. And that is basically going over the material, but not necessarily fully owning it and embodying it. And it took me many years of teaching it, of instructing from the course before I began to feel confident enough to know I can absolutely own that I am a teacher of God. Why? Because I practice this. Salvation comes from my one self. I accept it fully, 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 without reservation, who I am as God created me. And that is what the self is, the capital S self that is talked about in this particular lesson. And the world right now is in the state of confusion that it's in. It's in a very chaotic place right now, which is a wonderful place to be, because uh, we need the storm. We need the activation of that which needs to be seen for us to move beyond the storm, to move into the place of reconstruction, of resurrection, of rebuilding. We can't get to co-creating the new until we go through the process of demolition of the old. I mean, this, you don't have to be a scientist to understand. You don't have to be a builder to understand. A child understands. I watch my grandbabies do this all the time. If you have a structure and you want to create something new on that same place where that other structure was, you have to demolish the old. My grandson builds Lego structures all the time. But when he wants to build something new, he's got to break down the old. It is simple. And he is 4 years old. He doesn't know engineering. He doesn't know architecture. He doesn't know about the process of demolishing a structure. He doesn't understand about dynamite and all those things. He doesn't have a PhD in any of that. But it's just innately knowing that if you want to create something new with what you've got to break down the old so that you can start fresh. That's what humanity is going through. And here's what's amazing to me about the Course in Miracles. The Course in Miracles is training our minds so that we can become the witnesses. And that I'm using that word very deliberately, the witnesses. We're here to observe, to watch with awareness the coming down of the old and the creation of the new. It's a co-creation. And what that means is we're witnessing the crucifixion, tearing down the old, getting rid of what the ego made, and co-creating the new, the resurrection. We're watching what Jesus came to teach right here, right now, as a witness to the incredible transformation that we're in the middle of. If your mind is not trained, and A Course in Miracles is not the only way to train the mind, there are other ways. However, it is a requisite, a prerequisite. It is required, the Course tells us, that you understand what the Course is teaching, and it can be taught in different ways, through other means. You have to understand the mind. This is something that Buddhism is really, really good at. The heart of those teachings are basically what Buddha taught. You have to train your mind. Buddha did not go to the next step. And this is when you begin to understand the levels of understanding to get us to that place of ultimate oneness with God. This is described in the book, The Disappearance of the Universe, the 5 attitudes of learning, not 5, 4 attitudes of learning. And you break things down when the logical mind is utilized to understand the journey. It is absolutely so much more helpful. Now, today I don't have my charts because when I draw the circle of the journey, the soul's journey, you see that there is a progression. And if you don't feel connected to my chart, you can look at Joseph Campbell's chart, the hero's journey. It's pretty much the same thing. We all forget who we are and go on a journey of remembering and return to the truth of who we are. Course in Miracles trains our mind to go on that journey. It allows us by showing us very clearly what has happened to our mind. And what happens to the mind is that, number one, we're created by God. We are in the mind of God. We have been given the mind of God to operate with. As a matter of fact, we just went over this in a lesson recently in the Awareness Academy, where I teach more, give more classes on the Course and building a community of those who want to go deeper into A Course in Miracles. Lesson 45 tells us, God is a mind with which I think. You cannot think apart from God. However, you can block what you have learned. You can pretend that you don't know what you know. This is what happens when we choose to separate ourselves from God. Now, we cannot separate ourselves from God no more than you can separate water from, a drop of water from the ocean. Yes, you could pull it away, but you still have the elements of water in that drop that are part of the ocean. And again, if you attempt to take that drop of water and ultimately separate it to what you think is its fullest level of separation, hello, sweetie, thanks for joining us, then that water is going to evaporate. But what's going to happen to the evaporation? it is going to return. It is going to find its way back in the form of rain. Eventually, it's going to return to its source because it cannot leave its source. It's impossible for water not to retain its property, even if you pull it out with a dropper and have one drop of water. We are that. We are the one drop of water who thinks, "Oh, I'm separate from God." But no different than the drop of water that got separated, that fell on a rock and it's going to evaporate in the heat of the sun. Eventually, it's going to form into the clouds that one day turns into precipitation that becomes the rain that will work its way back to the ocean. So the journey can be long. We have seen rain over the ocean, and we have seen rain, so far away from the ocean, maybe in the desert, where it takes it a while to make its way to the brooks, and the brooks to the rivers, and the rivers to the lakes, and eventually maybe other means by which it returns to the ocean. That's what we are. That is why we have had poets tell us that we cannot be anything other than the full property of the ocean in every single drop that we are. So understanding that we have a very specific process by which we forget who we are, there is also a very specific process by which we return to accepting what we are. And what returns is the mind. The mind becomes trained into accepting the truth of who we are. But to accept the truth of who we are, which is what this lesson is all about, is salvation comes from my one self, is to have made the decision to stop fighting what you are. You're not just dew, you're not just rain, you're not just precipitation, you're not just, what do you call that when steam? You're not just those things. You are water going through a process. You are those molecules, that H2O. That is the property of who you are. But you can go by many labels. You can go by the label of mother, of father, of son, of daughter. You can go by the label of teacher, of student, of chemist, of music conductor. You can label yourself whatever you want to label yourself, but you cannot not be what you are. And the Course in Miracles is a manual given to us to correct the misperceptions of our mind. So, basic question, and a very good question that most people do not ask: how did I forget what I am? Well, we first make a decision to, and this happens while we are in the mind of God, because we cannot not be there, just like the water cannot not be what it is, and the ocean cannot not be inside of the planet, and the planet cannot not be inside of the solar system. The solar system cannot not be inside of the multiverse, and the multiverse cannot not be inside of God. So we are just as much in the mind of God as this universe is in the mind of God, because God is what is eternal and all-encompassing. We are within that. So we're correcting the misperception that somehow God is out there and we're over here. We're accepting that we're within it. And when we accept that we're within it, then the rest of the work is to recognize how to think like it. And God creates, God extends, God is love, God is pure energy, call it consciousness, God is pure intelligence. And when we don't make full use of that, we block ourselves from the ability to access that information. And when we begin the process of that separation, that blocking of the knowledge of God, we begin to find ourselves all alone, like that drop that is now disconnected from the ocean because it's over there, one little drop that got spilled from the pitcher of water, or one little drop that got splashed from the wave and landed on a rock over there or somewhere further away from the mass of water. It doesn't matter. How we return to our peace, to our joy, to the awareness of who we really are requires that we understand how we left that. And it's really difficult using human language because we did not leave the source. We just are believing that we're apart from it. So the mind has to be trained, number one, into accepting you could not leave, because you got to train yourself to see the bigger picture, to recognize you're part of the bigger picture. If God is all there is and you're a dot in the all that is, then you're in the mind of God. You have to be. You can never not be not there. So many double negatives here, but it is what it is. So we have to understand, we have to logically allow ourselves to begin the process of humbling ourselves, getting off of our egoic high and mighty pedestal. I'm separate from everything, and I'm special, and I'm different, and I am me and unique, and I've got to protect myself because I'm separate from everything. That is one of the biggest, well, it's the first mistake that we make. The mind believing that it's separate from what it's within. You can't be separate from what you are within. So the Course wants us to understand how we forgot who we are. And it because you've got to come back to that point where you decided that you're not what you are. You have to return to that point, because at that point of you making the decision, I'm not a child of God, I am separate from God. When you made that decision, you used your power of decision. You used your ability to choose to believe something other than what God said is true. That is your free will. And that power to choose differently is what we are activating. We are remembering, we are retraining ourselves to recognize that we have the power to return to the truth of who we are by remembering that we are the ones who pick what we believe. And you've got to get comfortable with choosing the beliefs that allows you to return to the peace of God. That peace that passes all understanding, that doesn't come if you just color your hair, or you wear saffron robes, or you go climb to the top of the mountain and you stay in a monastery or in a cave or somewhere and chant Om for eternity. That does not return you to your truth. Now, all of those things can be part of the journey, but the only thing that returns you to their truth is making a decision. That's it. A decision to accept that you are as God created you. Now, that decision has to be made over and over and over again. The reason being is when we made the decision that we're separate from God, and we have the experience of incarnation, and we have the experience of being a body that comes from the mother's womb and exits the world, all of that is nothing more than a physical manifestation of a belief system of separation. The child separates from the mother. Immediately, we have the physical manifestation of that decision to be separate from the father. So we are separate from the father, then we're separate from the mother. And now we're all by ourselves. We can't count on dad. We can't count on mom. They've got their own lives. They've got their own thing going on. We can't count on anybody to take care of us. So by the age of 2, we were like, okay, I'm going to do it all by myself. And we've been doing it all by ourselves with misinformation, believing that we're separate and alone and fragile. And if I don't, get strong and tough and figure out my way, I'm going to be lost. And how can you be lost if you're in the mind of God? You're not lost. You're forever safe in the mind of God. However, we have to train our mind to remember that that's the truth, to think correctly, because the mind has been trained to think incorrectly. Wrong-mindedness is what the Course in Miracles calls it. So from the moment that we enter into the human experience, we are bombarded by information that is 99% of it misinformation. When we hear that God is separate from us, it's like, not true. When we hear that we're not good enough, not true. Try to make that big X sound like they do in the game shows. When you make a mistake, that buzzard. that we're separate from God, that we're not good enough, that we're not lovable, that we're not wanted, that we're a problem, that we don't have, that we're not creative enough, that we're not smart enough, that we're not capable enough. All of that is really not true to who you are as God created you. You are spirit, full on spirit, capable of all you want to experience, making a decision that you are apart from God, having a very finite experience as you. The artist, the musician, the stay-at-home parent, the mathematician, the bum, the homeless person. You can be anything you want to be because you're accessing all that is. And you're just picking, oh, today I'm going to put on this costume. In this lifetime, I'm going to be this. And in some lifetimes, we put on a couple different costumes. We are a little child and we're an adolescent, then we become an adult. You know, I've worn a couple different costumes myself. I've been a realtor, I've been a teacher of God, I've been a stay-at-home mom, I've been a coach. I worked at a restaurant. I still, work part-time at a restaurant. So there are lots of things that we can do. And so we're not necessarily pigeonholed. But because I know I don't have access to the information of brain surgery, I don't go around offering to do brain surgery on anybody because we understand that we have certain limitations within the physical construct that creates boundaries and creates limitations about what we can and cannot do. But when you begin to feel that call to return home, no different than the drop of water is going to eventually be evaporated and those molecules are going to find their way back to the process of returning to the ocean. It has to happen that way. You will also find your way home. But to find your way home, along the way, you're going to have to train your mind. Whether you have a massive, experience where you see the light, you're one, that happened to me in 2007. 5 years up until then, I was studying and understanding what was happening. I was going down all kinds of rabbit holes. I was the ultimate conspiracy theorist at that time because I was recognizing that so many things just were nonsensical. How can the church, how can one person, Pope, decide what's true for all of us, for all that happen to be within that religion? How can one president make decisions for everybody? How can one king? And then I started utilizing my logical mind. Who appointed these people? And then I started going backwards in time. And I mean, it was absolutely amazing. It's like those structures of how things are were just bursting. And I was freeing myself from these ideas because something was guiding me. I know it was the presence of Jesus guiding me to question everything, to go to the beginning of that thought system. Religion started. It wasn't here before we showed up. It started later on. Humans started those religions. So what was here before that? What were some of the ways that we operated with one another before that? What were the beliefs that we had before that? What were the languages that we had before we had all these different languages? So when you're willing to go back, this is why it's so important that you understand history so you don't repeat it, which is why humanity has been kept in the dark about our history, our true history, because we've been fed a history that allows for very few to control the many that don't have control of their own minds. So in essence, we have chosen to incarnate and give all of our power away by using our power to give our power away. And we decided, okay, you tell us who we are. That's why we have to go back to the point of the decision. We decided to give our power away. We've got to take our power back. And this is why the Course in Miracles it's a course in mind training, and it's a self-study course. You train yourself to take power back over your mind. There is no savior out there. We've been taught that there are saviors out there. And that is absolutely part of the lies that keep you separate from the truth of who you are, because we have created idols. We've created the idols that are going to entertain us, the idols that are going to heal us, the idols that are going to financially protect us, the idols that are going to make sure that we're safe because they're going to be out there bombing the bad people, the idols who are going to play basketball or sing a song or paint a painting so that we can be entertained and we don't have to tap into to our own abilities because, well, we've got them to do it for us. We have been totally trained into allowing the outside to have power over us. So humanity is at the point right now that you have to make the choice. If you're going to believe that humanity has the power over you, you're going to remain in that third dimensional consciousness, meaning you don't want to take your power back. You may say you want to, but you're not willing to do the work of training your mind. Nothing wrong with that, because to really do the work of training your mind requires an incredible amount of willingness. The course in the beginning says a little willingness, but later on, if you move into the manual for teachers, it tells you it requires an incredible amount of willingness because you have to question everything you believe until you think like God. This is why Jesus told us, I and the Father are one. He began to think like God. And when you begin to think like God, who is the creator of all things, are you really going to be focusing on the minutia of human life? I don't think so. You're going to be focused on your individualized expression of what God is within human life. This is what has you be in the world, but not of it. And to have that experience of what you are, to not be of the world, what are you of? You are of spirit. So the journey is a journey to correcting the wrong thinking in your mind so that you can begin to think correctly while you are in the world. We are awakening inside of a dream of separation. And for some people, it may take a couple of lifetimes before this really grounds in. But if you make the decision that you are willing to know the truth, then you are choosing the timeline, the path of acceleration during this time, because everything is accelerating, to be to be a part of the ascension process. Ascension is not that there's some kind of a spiritual elevator that's going to lift you up. That's not going to happen. What is going to happen is that you are moving out of the immature, fear-based, low frequency of thinking based in the lower chakras, where you're rooted in who you think you are as a human, and you begin to look at the world through the eyes of God. You have to move into your heart. This is why we have to learn to love truly how God loves. Love our neighbors, love everybody, no judgments. We've got to learn how to do that because humans don't know true love. We know conditional love. You do this, then I'll love you. We have to move to the place where I don't care what you did, I still love you. So you have to move. You've got to utilize your voice as a child of God, as a teacher of God. You got to begin to speak. Your speaking has to be congruent with what you're thinking when you're thinking with the mind of God. It will happen automatically. Until then, you got to be honest of when you're not. This is the whole process of awakening, is what is truth, but you're constantly recognizing, okay, I'm not there. If this is 100% aligned with God, then you've got to admit, well, I'm at 5% alignment. I'm at 6% alignment. I'm at 7, at 8, at 9, at 10, 20, 30, 40, 80. The way that you recognize that is by being a witness to your thinking. Oh, okay, my thinking today told me that I'm insignificant, that I'm a victim, that I'm not good enough, that I know better. That's not how God thinks. So you got to be honest. Oh, so I'm thinking limiting thoughts. I'm thinking self-deprecating thoughts. God doesn't think like that. So you become honest about you are the one who is thinking the thoughts that are blocking you from experiencing who you are as God created you. Does that make sense? You've got to really, it's such a simple thing. Oh, I just have to think like God. But it takes a lot of effort for you to be honest with yourself, because here's the trickery of the ego. The part of us that is invested in not knowing God is the part of us that is constantly creating those obstacles that something inside of us has to wake up and become the witness to, and take responsibility for the thoughts that you are having. And this is not an easy thing to do. One of the common things with people that I have coached or taught over the years is that they like, and when I say they like, the ego loves, not just likes, loves to advocate for its own inadequacies. Oh, but this is bad. This is difficult. This is terrible. Poor thing. Look at them. Look at, what a horrible thing. Okay. Those things that you are judging is your ego doing the judging because God does not judge. God sees everything as powerful and doesn't even enter its mind that you are not recognizing who you are. That is why we have all these guides, meaning all those who, just like you and me, remember the truth. We're here teaching each other. We're here helping each other. God is not stopping its creation to help us remember who we are because God does not know that we don't remember. God just knows that we're off doing whatever we're doing, making mischief and not attempting to tell us stop doing that. So, Course in Miracles was given to us, channeled by Jesus, so that we would have a manual to help us in the correction of our mind. The world is in the mess that it is in today because we have not been operating with truth. We've been operating with misinformation that says that we're separate. We create, we've made all these boundaries, all these separations, and this is yours, this is mine. And then we've created these beings who have ascended. This is why you have to understand history. People who ascend to positions of power and decide, well, then I'm the king or I'm the president, I'm in charge. Was any of that there before that? No, it wasn't. It's all made up. It's all made up and humans buy into it. And then because we don't question it, generation after generation, millennia after millennia, it's the same way. If you want to really expand your mind about God, get it out of organized religion. Pop out of that small perspective and begin to look at the bigger picture. How can so many different religions exist that have different perspectives about God? Why? Because you will see that they all have a starting point, and every thought system has a starting point. Get to know the person who made that up. Find out their motivations for making up that religion, for making up these rules and regulations that were not there before. That's why, we've got to train ourselves into questioning, into becoming curious. And we don't really have to train ourselves. Curiosity is natural, but we have to have the willingness to get curious again. Last week, we looked at lesson 96. I'm just going to give you a couple highlights because we went through the first 4 paragraphs. And it tells us in the first paragraph that although you are one self, you experience yourself as two. This is the separation. There's good and there's evil. From the time that we're little, mom and dad told us, be a good girl, don't be a bad boy, don't do this, don't do that. It's good or it's bad. It's good or it's evil. It's loving or it's hating. It's mind or it's body. This is one of the areas where an advanced teacher of God is going to be very, very clear. We have mind because we are mind. Mind makes a body when the ego's in charge. If the ego's not in charge, you are not making a body. You operate in pure consciousness, which is where Jesus channeled this information to Helen Schuckman. Jesus is in pure consciousness. Helen Schuckman is in the world. She receives the information. It gets published and disseminated to everybody who's in the world, coming from higher consciousness, a consciousness that knows we're all one mind. I'm going to communicate through this one so I can communicate with everybody else. We call it channeling, and it's like so wild and out there, and people are shocked that somebody else is talking through you. Well, in the olden days when that happened, they would say that you were possessed and burn you at the stake. Today, we are becoming more and more comfortable recognizing that there is only one mind and we all have access to it. And eventually, when we all accept that, and we don't all have to accept that, for those who begin to accept it and really, truly eliminate all of the beliefs against it, are going to experience the ability to have telepathic communication because it's all one. It's all one. We're just removing the obstacles, the barriers to that becoming your reality. So you have to become honest about what you're believing. Usually the first belief is, oh, I can't do that. Well, stop thinking you can't. What's the opposite of you can't? You can. Oh, I can have Communication like that, I can communicate with any, I can be telepathic. And then you change that from I can become telepathic to what if I am that already? And then you sit and observe. I am telepathic. Why is that not coming on? Because I've been learning that I need a cell phone, that I need to pick up the phone. We've got all these devices, all these ways that we connect with each other. I'm separate from this one. I live over here. They're in that other state. I'm in this country. They're across the world. All of those are beliefs that we have to let go of. Those are the obstacles to the truth that if you recognize you're telepathic, you have to make the decision to open up that communication. For most people, that's going to be scary. Well, what if, you know what? I'm going to start listening to all this information. Yeah, you will eventually, but you get to gradually decide what it is that you want to listen to. The best way to get that going is to begin by training your mind in the truth about God. God is a benevolent creator. It is loving. There is nothing that it has done to harm humanity at all whatsoever. Nothing, 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 nothing. So we've got to begin to think like God and begin the process of loving ourselves, a process that takes time because most of us loathe ourselves. You may think you love yourself, but deep down inside, are you trying to impress somebody because you don't like you? You need to get their approval. Are you trying to change your body? Are you not happy with what you have? It's because you don't like you. You need something else to make you feel better about yourself. You haven't made peace with who you are. That means you don't love yourself. So we got to go through a process of learning to love ourselves so we can begin to feel the love of God within, which is the activation of self-love. And it's not a self-love that is selfish. Oh, I'm doing this just for me and I don't care about you. That's not what it is. So there's a lot that goes into becoming humble, becoming, honest, becoming curious, becoming willing. So many components to this journey. So you are oneself, but you are experiencing yourself in two, and everything gets separated into two categories: good and bad, right and wrong. And that separation is a projection of a mind that believes it's separate from its source. So lots of understanding here. So then what happens is when you have these ideas of separation, your mind is in contradiction. There's good, there's bad. Oh my gosh, I'm a good person in a bad world. I got to protect myself. I got to defend myself. I need to make sure I change everybody else. I got to attack them. I've got to defend myself. Then all of those things become permissible by an ego that is feeling attacked, that is feeling threatened. Because if you knew you were safe in the mind of God, what is there to be threatened about? And listen, this stuff is simple. It is not easy. I know for me, I've been on a journey for quite a while now. And it's like, what is it, 4 years of doing this work. And it takes time, but we're using time to undo what got built over time. That's why you have to go backwards. You got to get comfortable going backwards, understand the history so you stop repeating it. But you have to understand the true history, not the made up history that is conveniently being used to program people into believing certain specific agendas that keep us completely unaware of the power that we have. Do you realize that when humanity, in a big way, and it's already happening, begins to say, no, I'm not going to listen to external authorities, guess what's going to happen? They're not going to like it at first. If you're watching the people of Iran, if you're watching the people in Mexico, if you're watching people around the world saying, no, I'm not going to believe what some puppet master is telling me is true. I know I deserve freedom. I know that peace is natural. I don't need somebody telling me that we need to bomb each other, that we need to fight each other, that we need to ban each other. I'm not going to believe things that don't feel right. That knowingness is within us and it's getting activated, and more of us are saying, nope, we're not going to listen to external authorities. And what do external authorities do? They kill you. They put you in prison. They burn you at the stake. They shut down your social media. They take you to court. They keep you in such a state of confusion, of defending yourself, of needing to do things to protect yourself, to protect your livelihood. I mean, it's very simple. Look at COVID. Look at what happened during that time frame. Everybody who spoke against it, those were the ones who were shadow banned. I know I had a bunch of my Facebook stuff constantly. I had the fact checkers. Where are they now? We don't have fact checkers now, do we? Constantly fact checking me and telling me that I was spreading misinformation and putting me in Facebook jail. That's when I began to lose my desire and respect for social media, and just realize, oh, okay, this is just another platform where we have somebody else telling us what we can and cannot believe. So what happened to those people who were speaking the truth? They were labeled. These are bad people. These, don't listen to them. So what happened? People didn't want to be labeled. They stopped speaking up. They went into fear. All of the very things that allows for a totalitarian way of being to take over. So we have to decide, no, I am not going to accept what you think is true for me. I am listening to a source within me, and I know what the truth is. And when you know the truth, you can even die for the truth, just as Jesus did. I'm not a body. You can crucify this all day long. It's not going to stop me from spreading the truth. I'll just use other people's bodies who think that they are bodies. Jesus hasn't stopped communicating with us since 2,000 years ago when he was crucified, because the teachings that Jesus was giving us was of the resurrection. He was resurrecting. He is not the body. He is the eternal consciousness that is forever teaching truth. Because once you know truth, that's all you can teach. And here we are as humans who are believing that we're separate, reincarnating, going through the same process over and over and over again, expecting different results. You will never find different results when you're thinking that you are separate. You will only find the truth, the truth when you begin to accept that you are one with God. And in that oneness comes the dismantling of the illusions of separation, which means your identity is going to be shattered. You're not who you think you are. Sorry to break that to you, but you're not. What you are is so much grander, so much vaster. As it says in here, salvation comes from my one self. You have to know who you are if you want to save yourself, spare yourself this insanity. In paragraph 2, we looked at the fact that truth and illusion cannot be reconciled. No matter how hard you try, truth is truth, illusion is illusion. So it takes a while. And until you decide, I only want the truth, you're going to continue to, inside the illusion, looking for truth in all the wrong places, searching different religions, different spiritual paths, different crystals, different things to help you feel better. It's not going to be there. Sorry, Charlie. It's not going to be there. The truth is the truth is the truth, and there's only one way to get to it. You got to come inside. You got to come inside and become the observer of all the lies that you believe. Because once you get comfortable recognizing how wrong you've been, then you can come to the place that you go, whoa, wasn't that a fun journey? Wasn't that fun living that pretend life for all those years, maybe all those incarnations? But now I am taking that costume off. I am accepting who I am as God created me. And more of us are doing that. So the consciousness is activating a greater resonance with those who are operating at that level of vibration. And you don't have to fully embody it. You can think it. And as you're thinking it, that you deserve better, that you are created for greatness, that you're created by greatness, you begin to activate something inside of you that allows you to have that communication, that inner communication that guides you on this journey home. Then we looked at in paragraph number 4 that spirit makes use of the mind as means to find its self-expression. Once you begin to open up and you seek only truth, then spirit within you, the Holy Spirit, the Holy Ghost, whatever you want to call it, your intuition, your guidance, you begin to know that you're listening to things that were not there before. Well, they've always been there, but you weren't listening because you were distracted with the outer stuff. When you begin to get quiet, when you begin to get comfortable in stillness and quiet, and you make peace with solitude, and you decide, I want truth above anything else, you will be guided. You must be guided, because in your guidance, sorry about that, in your guidance, you are receiving the instructions that will take you one step at a time to return home. It's very benevolent, it's very loving, and it doesn't go any faster than you are willing to go. And the speed by which we return home is based on your willingness to override your own wrong thinking. So it's you and you all the time. Nobody can make you believe that you are pure spirit, powerful. Nobody can make you believe that. You have to internally decide that that is so. And the increments to which you decide that it is so determines the speed by which you return home. You return home to yourself. And this is why honesty is so important, because we have to watch what we say, watch what we think all the time, watch what we're doing, because that is telling you what you're believing. And your beliefs have to be changed at the root level, which means it's in your own consciousness. You've got to look at your thoughts and that programming that has you seeking what is positive because you're avoiding what is negative. And oftentimes the ego is chasing what is positive because it thinks what is negative is going to be bad for you. But oftentimes to the ego, what is negative is undoing my identity. But yet that is the one thing that is going to save you, that is going to free you. So you got to be really vigilant for what it is that the ego mind is telling you. So let's go into paragraph 5. Yet mind apart from spirit cannot think. Our thinking abilities come from being spirit, being one with God, one with source. Sentence 2, it has denied its source of strength and sees itself as helpless, limited, and weak. This is the foundational thought system of the ego. This is why it has to make itself somebody. It has to attempt to achieve, to acquire, to become, because it considers itself helpless, limited, and weak. Why? Because it has denied its source of strength. You're a child of God. Strength is your ability to choose. That's where your strength comes from. To choose to believe what you are, or to choose to live as what you're not. You're not weak. How can a child of God be weak? How can you not be strong? You're simply believing thoughts that tell you you should feel weak. And that's such a fundamental place that you have to go. Question your thoughts. Why do you think you're weak? Why do you think you're alone? Because you're thinking it. Because it's just a thought that you have. You picked it up from the environment. You've been trained into that. You made peace with that thought, and it creates your misery. And we become comfortable in our misery because it's familiar. And what the Course attempts to help us do is to move beyond the familiar, move beyond the trap of the illusion of separation. And then it tells us in 3, dissociated from its function now, it thinks it is alone and separate, attacked by armies, massed against itself and hiding in the body's frail support. I'm small and the big world's coming after me, the big, IRS with 80,000 new agents, or the medical association with all those professional doctors with PhDs, and all those people know better than me. I'm poor little me. I don't know much of anything. I got to go to the grocery store to get my food because I don't know how to grow my own food. I've got to go to the school and get my education because I don't know how to educate myself. We've been taught that we cannot do anything all by ourselves. And we need the outside to help us. And at that magical age of 2, I told you I was going to tell you what's special about March 4th. Today is the day my granddaughter was born 2 years ago. One of the most magical times of my human experience. Because that little girl decided to come in the middle of the night during a heavy storm. I think we had 14 inches of snow that night. And the midwife, because it was going to be a home birth, could not get there because the streets hadn't been plowed at 1 a.m. So she couldn't make it there. And I was the one who received that baby when she decided to pop out of her mommy's belly, with, her daddy on the phone talking to the midwife, telling us what to do, and me there receiving sweet little Ellie Mae. And no, her last name is not Clampett. Ellie Mae Hitchell. So she comes out, and I got to hold that baby as the first human who held this little child, a divine child of God who decided to have the experience of separation, pops out of her mother into her grandmother's arms, and we start this journey as me, grandmother, and her in the role of granddaughter. How beautiful is that? But when we know we're playing those roles, nobody has to diminish that anyone is better or lesser than or anything like that. Just because I'm the grandmother doesn't mean that I'm better. I grew up with that. Grandmother knows better. Grandmother is more important, more special, more blah, 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 blah. And you, the child, you're not. We don't do that with Ellie. Everybody's equal in this family, playing different roles, having different abilities. So when you understand that, then what happens is you don't dissociate. Sentence number 3, first word, dissociate it from its function now. That's what the ego is. We dissociate from the truth of who we are. You can enter into this world, play the game of separation, be in it, but you don't have to be of it if your mind is not trained into dissociating from the truth of who you are. Future generations are being raised by parents who have gone on their journey, or grandparents who've gone on their journey, or aunts or uncles who've gone on their journey, and remember who they are. Letting those little ones know who you are is powerful. You are already whole and complete. There is nothing at all missing in you. And when that is reinforced over and over and over again, that child grows with such a sense of confidence and knowingness of who they are. And when God is kept for first and foremost in their mind, you are a child of God. You are an aspect of God expressing itself uniquely as Ellie Mae. How does God want to be Ellie Mae right now? How do we see God through you? Well, when she's doing loving things, we can see that. When she starts acting out in that selfish way, trying to take something from his brother or her brother, parents redirect her. That's not loving. That's not kind. We're not going to do that to your brother. What would feel good for you? What would you like for your brother to do? Be nice. Well, we're training Ryder, my grandson, into the same things. Yells at his sister, "Hey, give me back my toy." How would you like somebody to talk to you if you're the one that has her toy? Well, I want them to be kind to me. Well, then show her how to treat you. Treat others how you want to be treated. When you are raised in that kind of environment, where from the get-go, you learn to treat others how you want to be treated. You love your neighbor as yourself. How do you take care of yourself, capital S self? You remember you're worthy. I deserve to be loved. Guess what? So do they. This level of thinking from the time that you're little, what kind of a world do you think we're going to have with people who treat others like they want to be treated? When it is based on love, real love, unconditional love, kindness, gentleness, compassion, that is the world that is going to be created. That is what's going to be birthed. But we can't have a world where everybody's operating that way until the old way is seen and we say no to it. We got to say no to corruption. We got to say no to selfishness, no to double standards, where politicians get one thing, where rich people get one thing, but everybody else gets something else. We have to say no to that. That's the dismantling. That is the deliberate and conscious decision. No to what I don't, it's not in alignment with me. It doesn't resonate with me. So watching it fall by someone who is in a conscious space, in a space of in a frequency that can look at it with neutrality, is a gift that you're giving all of humanity. But when you're fighting it, when you're battling it, when you're marching against it, when you're saying no to this, no to that, stop the wars with warring, marching and yelling. And, I was so amused. I was watching this thing on Facebook. A friend posted something about Iran, and this other woman whom I know gets on there and she says, "Why are you posting these things about Iran when we are going to war? War is the last thing we want. We got to stop these wars. What's wrong with you posting these things?" And my old self would have posted on there, "Why are you at war with our friend? Why are you attacking her? Why are you hurtling missiles of righteousness and blame and shaming her? You're just perpetuating all of this same stuff that you say you don't want out there." But the me that is practicing defenseless, my defenselessness, my safety lies, I just observe it and go, all right, these are friends in the spiritual community. They go to unity and they talk about consciousness. And in consciousness, we don't war, but they're not walking the talk when they are going to war with their friends, even on social media, by putting that friend down. That those things, that's war. So we have to understand the basics of what's happening. Our language shows you what it is that we stand for. That's why you have to be vigilant and willing to question every thought that you have. So the disassociated from its function, now it thinks it's alone and separate, attacked by armies massed against itself and hiding in the body's frail support. Now must it reconcile unlike with like, for this is what it thinks that it is for. Now the one friend has to tell the other friend how wrong that friend is, attacking that friend. Where's the love there? Where is the love there? But you can't see it when you're in it. It's just an amazing thing. Paragraph 6, waste no more time on this. This is where we get to decide how quickly are we going to wake up. It really is within our power, but we have all of eternity to do it in. God is not paying attention. Oh, did it take this one 3 lifetimes? That one took only, 1 lifetime. This one took 100 lifetimes. Well, you go to the back of the line because you're the slowpoke. God doesn't do that. We do that to each other, but God doesn't do that to us. Why? Because God knows that we're not separate from it. It knows we're not separate from it. Waste no more time on this. Who can resolve the senseless conflicts with a dream, which a dream presents? What could the resolution mean in truth? What purpose could it serve? What is it for? Salvation cannot make illusions real, nor solve a problem that does not exist. Perhaps you hope it can. Yet would you have God's plan for the release of his dear son bring pain to him and fail to set him free? This is why if we don't understand what God says, we cannot free ourselves, because we're trying to solve a problem that doesn't really ultimately exist. So this friend saying all these things to the other friend on Facebook just because she disagrees with her position is simply failing to see that she's projecting out there her fear. So if I can put my friend down, then I can feel superior. And then that will somehow, because I go to unity and I'm spiritual, protect me from being bombed by somebody else. It's insane. So we're trying to protect ourselves by attacking others. Instead of taking all of that energy and stop wasting time and come within and go, okay, to my friend, you know what? I agree with you in terms of I don't want war. And the one friend who made the post said to this other one that attacked her, well, what do you propose we do? But those people don't respond with what it is that we propose we do, because the ego is in the what we shouldn't do. And while we're talking about that, what we shouldn't do, we can come to the place where we look for solutions. That's why the ego mind keeps us repeating the same thing, expecting different results. Insanity is what Einstein called it. Insanity is what the Course calls it. Because this requires such incredible, incredible honesty. Paragraph 7 says, your self, capital S self, retains its thoughts. And you go to earlier lessons, it tells you thoughts do not leave their source. Your self retains its thoughts. It's meaning God's thoughts, because yourself and God are one. And they remain within your mind and in the mind of God. The Holy Spirit holds salvation in your mind and offers it the way to peace. Salvation is a thought you share with God because his voice accepted it for you and answered in your name that it was done. Thus is salvation kept among the thoughts yourself holds dear and cherishes for you. What that means is that when you accept that God created you free, and you stop the entertaining of the thoughts that are lies in your head, when you start getting really honest with yourself and you learn to value yourself, You will not continue to accept the lies that you tell you because you have agreed with those lies. So if you're believing somebody can offend you with a post that they make on Facebook, you are using your power to disempower yourself, to choose to feel offended by what somebody wrote. Do you see how silly that is? You know, did you not grow up in the age of sticks and stones can hurt my bones, but words can never hurt me? Words cannot hurt you. So stop being hurt by words. Stop choosing to be hurt by words and begin to come to the place where you discover the truth. God created you free. This is what salvation is. Do you imagine what will happen when everybody remembers that and we all pop out of the illusion of separation, that we need to attack one another to feel safe? That's all ego lies. When you feel your safety and you withdraw yourself from that, it will take time because we're operating in time. As you pull your energy from attacking another and you ground it inside of saving yourself. To save yourself is to spare yourself the lies. That's what salvation means. You're saving yourself from your own condemnation, your own constant crucifixion by the ego. You walk into a church and what's the first thing you see? You see Jesus hung on a cross. Jesus Christ. I can't believe that just came out of my mouth, but it did. So we're going to go with it. The man came to teach about resurrection, and yet we have glorified the crucifixion. Why? Because if you're afraid that you are going to end up like Jesus, you will do everything you can to not really be in good terms with God. If God is willing to sacrifice his one and only son, what's he going to do to me? So we have these beliefs in the back of our mind that keep us so completely from understanding our truth. And our truth is the opposite. You got to go the other way of where the lies are. But you got to become the observer of it. And ultimately, as cliche as it sounds, it really is a matter of learning to love yourself enough to deserve that peace that passes all understanding. Paragraph 8 says, we will attempt today to find this thought whose presence in your mind is guaranteed by him who speaks to you from your one self. When you take a statement like that in the course and you read it and you keep going, you're doing yourself a disservice because you've got to zero in on what it's saying. We are going to make an attempt today. And we'll make an attempt tomorrow. And we're going to make an attempt the other day. So you cannot fail at this. You're attempting to get there, to find this thought whose presence in your mind is guaranteed. So you've got to stop and go, okay, that thought is in there. What is that thought? That my salvation is guaranteed. My salvation is so because God is in my mind. I can access those thoughts because God thought it with me when God created me. And it's guaranteed, but I'm going to make attempts. I'm going to become honest. I'm trying it again today. It is guaranteed by him. God guarantees it. And the Holy Spirit that speaks for God is simply the voice of who you truly are, talking to you in the most intimate of places, where when you can hear the voice of the Holy Spirit and you can hear the voice of the ego and you become the witness. That's when salvation really begins to happen, because you hear this voice that says, let's be loving. In my defenselessness, my safety lies. You pull back and delete that text that you were about to send to a friend, letting them know how wrong they were, how much they hurt you, how much they disrespected you. You pull that back and you listen to the Holy Spirit that says, don't do that. You're going to create more separation. And you hear the ego, what? But they deserve it. And you hear that voice that says, nobody deserves that. Do you? You deserve peace. And then you, the observer, begins to say, okay, I've got these two voices. I've got this one that says that I gotta give them peace of my mind. That would be the right thing to do. You've got another voice that says, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? And when the presence of awareness within you becomes aware of these two voices, you are accessing the mind of God. You're coming closer to realizing that you have the power to choose which thought to believe. Now you're moving back behind the programming that says that they deserve a piece of my mind. I'm going to lay down and let them walk all over me. When you don't care about what others think of you, now, and I'm not talking about in a typical human egoic way, well, I don't care about that one. I'm talking about when the attention on the outer world thinking what they think about me being so important shifts to what does God think about me? When that becomes more important, you are on a fast track because now you make everything becomes a decision that you are making based on what God says is true, because now you have shifted into trusting God more than you trust the world. And the world was made up by the ego. So why would you keep going to the outer world for solutions when the real answer that will save you, that will spare you suffering is right there inside of you, but you can't hear that voice because the ego is really loud. So you got to dial it down. You've got to decide, turn the volume down. And when you tell your ego, I am not going to do that. When you begin to override your own reactive thoughts, you're onto something. Now, of course, you're going to feel a little schizophrenic for a while. I thought I was, I went through a period. Everybody goes through a period of spiritual, being bipolar, where you've got this thought telling you you should defend yourself, and you've got this thought telling you, no, don't do it. This one's going to be pretty soft because the voice from God never yells at you. This one's going to be really loud. That's how you begin to know. This one's very loud and repetitive. That's how you know, okay, that's the ego. And as you become the observer, you begin to see the patterns of the ego, and then you begin to see the patterns of the Holy Spirit. And gentleness and kindness begins to become more normal. And as you accept that as more normal, you're willing to take a little bit more time and assess the situation and observe, okay, this one is always so aggressive. Now, as the ego gets spiritualized, it begins to sound like this one. So for a while, you will hear, you will be in confusion, because this one will say, but you should speak your mind because you deserve to stand up and be heard. Yes, you deserve to stand up and be heard. So we're activating our third chakra. We want to speak the truth, but you will be doing it from the ego's perspective, which still has a desire to be right. And that's okay. You're bringing it down instead of blasting them. Maybe you're just going to let them know, okay, and just to let you know what you said was not kind. That's okay. But little by little, you're coming to the place where in your defenselessness, your safety lies, because you come to realize it's all a dream. It's all made up. Why are you trying to defend anything inside of a dream? That's when you move into mastery. You realize it's all made up. So how do you want to navigate this experience with a bunch of characters that forgot who they really are? That's what's so beautiful about the course, is training your mind into such a level of awareness. It's just so beautiful. So it tells us in paragraph 8, we will attempt today to find this thought, whose presence your mind is guaranteed by him, whose presence in your mind is guaranteed by him. So once you begin to accept, okay, that piece is there, now you become committed to getting to that piece. So it tells us that our hourly 5-minute practicing will be a search for him within your mind. We're looking for the thoughts of God in our mind. We're looking for that which is loving within us. We were born with that. We have access to that. Remember, everything else was trained. Everything else was obstacles built against our remembering the truth of who we are. Sentence 3, salvation comes from this one self through him who is the bridge between your mind and it. Wait patiently and let him speak to you about yourself and what your mind can do. Restore to it and free to serve its will. The bridge is the Holy Spirit. It's the part of us that begins to realize that there are two voices in there. And when you can begin to see there are two voices, that you're building a bridge where you listen to this voice. Now you're beginning to walk yourself to this voice. You're beginning to move to listen to this voice. It takes time. It takes patience. It tells us right there to wait patiently. and become the observer of the thoughts in your mind. Before you react, you're going to learn to respond. And as you learn to respond, all you're doing is observing, and you're deciding which thought is going to have the outcome that you prefer to experience. Now you are moving to the place where you're choosing. And when you get really honest about it, sometimes you're going to choose to do what the ego tells you because it kind of sounds, still has a charge and it feels like the right thing to do and defending yourself. But you will know you chose this over this. And you will also know when you choose the Holy Spirit over the ego, it's going to have a different outcome. It's going to feel very different. And as you become aware of how it feels when you listen to the Holy Spirit, little by little, you will do only what the Holy Spirit guides you to do. You will stop listening to the voice that is attempted to only be right. And guess what happens over here? You feel more peace, you feel more happiness, you feel more joy. Why? Because those are the natural frequencies of spirit. That's the goal is to return to being what we are, which is already within you. You can have that experience, but it's been blocked over time. So then paragraph 9 tells us that begin with saying this: salvation comes from my one self. Its thoughts are mine to use. If my one self has thoughts, where are those thoughts? Well, they're in my mind. Let me begin to listen for them so I can use them. There's a logic to all of this, but you have to become vigilant for what you are thinking so that you can see what is ego and trickery and what is God and consistency. Then the sentence 4 says, then seek its thoughts and claim them as your own. You have this thought. No, don't defend yourself. Well, I'm going to claim that. God is saying, the Course tells me my defenselessness, my safety lies. So let me not defend myself. I'm going to go with that thought. These are your own real thoughts you have denied, and let your mind go wandering in a world of dreams to find illusions in their place. So we've always had those thoughts. We had them when we were little. My little grandchildren had those thoughts. They were super kind and gentle when they were 1, 2, specifically 1 to maybe 18 months. They didn't hurt anybody. And then all of a sudden, around 18 months, oh, this is mine. They start getting aggressive and they start becoming possessive. Why? Because they watch their parents. Oh no, this is my car. I'm not going to let them use my car. No, this is my house. We're going to lock them out. This is my stuff. This is my bank account. No, I'm not going to lend money to so-and-so. I loaned my sister money already before and she didn't pay me back. So the children are listening. Oh, parents own things. It's theirs. It becomes possessive. So the kids do the same thing. Ryder wasn't possessive as much as Ellie because Ryder is older, so he's now possessive. He's been learning that over the years. So now Ellie is possessive because she's seen that example. So we're doing the best that we can to let them know, yes, it's yours, but isn't it more fun when we share it? And Ryder, don't you like playing with Ellie's toys? Well, not as much as mine. Okay, but you still do. Yeah? Well, then when she wants to play with your toys, be kind. What would you like being done unto you? It's a very consistent, constant reminder so that it stays ingrained in them to not be selfish, to be caring, to share. So it's just amazing to watch how the mind gets hijacked when we're little. So we're doing everything we can to try and keep it as pure as possible. So paragraph number 10. If you succeed, the thoughts that come to you will tell you you are saved and that your mind has found the function that it sought to lose. Now you're making decisions. I've tapped into these thoughts. I'm going to hold on to these thoughts. They feel good. My ego doesn't like it because now I don't get to be righteous, and the ego doesn't like not being righteous. So now we're humbling ourselves. We're getting off our high horse and beginning to accept that there are other ways of doing things. And as we do that more and more, it's restored to us another way of doing things that is not part of this world of selfishness and greed and judgments and shaming and blaming. Sentence 2, your self, capital S self, will welcome it and give it peace. Restore in strength and give it peace. Restored in strength, it will again flow out from spirit to the spirit in all things created by the spirit as itself. Your mind will bless all things, confusion done. You are restored, for you have found yourself. I'm watching that with my grandkids. As Ryder being a little older and becoming gentler with Ellie, now I'm watching Ellie start to talk to Ryder in a more gentle way because Ryder has been modeling for her. No, instead of yelling you, oh, put my toy down. Ellie, may I please have my toy back? Now Ellie's starting to, not always, but it's progress, right? Treat others how you want to be treated. Love your neighbor as yourself. The basic law is being practiced in the home. What do you think those kids are going to do as they grow older? They're used to listening to the voice that says, I rather love on you than be right about this belongs to me or whatever. Doesn't mean that they're not going to have their human moments, but it means that we're establishing a normal to listen to the voice for God first. And again, those of us who are learning this when we're older, we got to work back to childhood to remember that we learned everything that is egoic. Self-protection. We were surviving with our siblings, with our family, with the environment, with the school system, with wherever we went, with the ball team, with the gymnastics competitions. We were trying to preserve ourselves because we didn't really know who we were. It wasn't taught to us when we were little. Future generations, that is going to be normal. We've got quite a few generations. I'm going to guess, maybe 5 generations before it becomes normal. I'm watching some of this stuff already happening in the country of El Salvador, where the president has said, no, we're going to, from a young age, reinforce that you are good, you are worthy, you have a lot to contribute. And it's changing that country from being one of the most aggressive and it had one of the highest crime rates in the world to being one of the ones with the least crimes because they are addressing things from a very young age. It's beautiful to watch what they're doing over there. Paragraph number 11. Yourself knows that you cannot fail today. Tap into the part of you that knows that success is guaranteed. Perhaps your mind remains uncertain yet a little while. Be not dismayed by this. The joy yourself experiences, it will save for you, and it will yet be yours in full awareness. So just be honest. Today, I shifted and lifted from low vibes to high vibes, from low thoughts to high feeling thoughts. I did it 3 times. I did it 4 times. I didn't do it, 4 other times, but I'm watching it and I'm choosing and I'm taking responsibility for what I'm thinking because that causes how I feel. And when you learn to really love yourself, you're only going to want to feel peace. And when you really recognize that your thoughts are what create how you feel, you will start being more honest about choosing because you've taken responsibility to think with spirit, which always leads to you feeling peaceful. Always. After your ego has its tantrum that, oh my gosh, they're going to think I'm wrong because I'm not defending myself. Let them think you're wrong. If you know you're doing what is accurate for you with the Holy Spirit, you don't need to be right in the outer world. I mean, it's totally, and Jesus did it on the cross. I am not going to blame this brother. I'm not going to shame him and guilt him for crucifying me. I'm forgiving him. He doesn't know who he is. He doesn't remember who he is. So he thinks that by killing my body, somehow that's getting rid of the problem. It's not. The problem is that we don't remember to be loving, which is our natural way of being because we haven't been taught that by people who forgot. Why shame them for that? They didn't know. They truly did not know. Sentence 5. Every time you spend 5 minutes of the hour seeking him who joins your mind and self, you offer him another treasure to be kept for you. Every time you choose peace, you will one day find yourself in a state of peace, more consistent because you chose to listen to God. You chose to trust that it was there. You chose to override the ego. You chose to give up righteousness. And boy, when you start giving up the need to be right, your journey accelerates. Paragraph 12. Each time today that you tell your frantic mind, and that's the ego, salvation comes from my one self. When you begin to override your ego and you tell yourself, I do not need to be right today. I am not going to be offended today. You in that moment, mind's going to go crazy and start talking to you. What do you mean? They're going to think I'm weak. They're going to think I've lost my mind. So you decide, you know what? My peace comes from God. I am starting to learn what it's like to not be defensive. And when I stop defending myself, guess what I'm doing? I stop attacking them. I'm moving into being a more loving person. I'm moving into being someone who is less reactive and more responsive. I'm responding to situations. And I start training myself to go to the Holy Spirit first. I remember at times I'd be in the middle of an argument with my husband, and I would just say, hold on, hold on. I don't want to keep talking right now because my ego is going to say some ugly things. I need to pull back. Let me go for a reset. Let me go do my timeout and let me align with God, and then I'll come back and continue this conversation. But I know right now, if we keep talking, you're just going to be talking to my ego, and that's not going to help either of us. And I was very, very quick to acknowledge that as soon as I felt it. I felt that need to be righteous. Oh, time out, time out. Let me reset. I knew it was me. It wasn't him. It was me. I needed to reset. And when I reset, my experience changed. And he, of course, he thought, oh my gosh, you're going crazy. That's okay. I don't care what anybody else thinks. I'm wanting to listen to what God has to say. And that changed my life. My life didn't change in any other way except for listening to something that is not of this world. And more treasures were growing for me. The peace, the joy, the clarity continue growing. Sentence 2. And all of it is given everyone who asks for it and will accept the gift. Here's the thing. It's yours, but you have to accept it. The only way you can accept it is by starting to use it. I have the peace of God in me. I'm going to start using it. I'm going to stop the conflicts in my life. I'm going to stop talking with my ego. I'm going to start recentering. I'm going to start inviting the truth. It's already there. It's there. I'm going to use it. It's like how many things that we buy and brought to our houses that we never used. They were still there, but you didn't use it. Same thing with the peace of God. It's there, but you have to use it. You have to accept it and put that gift to use. Think then how much is given unto you to give this day, that it be given you. And it sounds like an oxymoron. What? It's been given me, and it's been given unto you to give this day that is given you. Why does it say that? Well, because you have to accept it. And as you give it to others, then you receive the peace. You accept that peace is in you. You stop responding, reacting with the ego. You give your brother, your sister peace, not a piece of your mind, but peace, your peaceful self. You let them know, I need a reset. I need to, take a step back because I want to do and say the most loving thing. Why? And you don't have to tell them this. I did in my family because they knew I was teaching. So I would say to them, what I'm doing is when I reset, I am receiving the peace of God. And as I talk to you from a loving, peaceful way, I get to feel that high frequency operating inside of me. It's an amazing thing to be that consciously aware of how powerful we are. And when we accept the peace that is ours always, and we choose to extend it, we receive it twice. It multiplies in us. I receive the peace of God, then I give peace. Giving and receiving are one. I am feeling that again and again and again. And if you go out throughout your day, being peaceful, answering peacefully, not reacting, but responding, that treasure is multiplied in you. And little by little, you replace how you show up in the world from being egoically reactive out of insecurities to being consciously responsive out of confidence. That only happens if you choose to make those corrections little by little and take the time that it takes to return yourself to the truth that is there. It's in all of us, but it's only available to those who accept it and then make use of it. All right. That's the story, and I'm sticking to it. If you want more lessons, if you want a deeper dive into the course, join us in the Awareness Academy. All those links are inside of the information here on my YouTube. Otherwise, see you next Wednesday, where we always do these Ascension with A Course in Miracles. I love you all. Richard, you want to share anything? No? All right, brother. See you in the Academy. Love you all. Bye-bye.